Joining me right now is House Majority Leader, Congressman Kevin McCarthy. Congressman, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, good to see you.
So Republicans, like yourself, declining to endorse Trump's tweet, which threatened to impose a 35% import tariff. Talk to us about this. What do you propose instead?
Well, we both agree that we want to create an economy where people can keep their businesses here in America. Right now, our tax code pushes you overseas, repatriation, the highest corporate tax rate. There's ways to go about solving this problem. I think we all have many ideas on the table. I think you lower the tax rate, you change repatriation, and also you do a border adjustment. That's what we do when it comes to a better way. But all ideas are out there. I just want to think from one perspective that if we have the most competitive market in America, we won't have trade problems because, you know, more than 90% of the population lives outside of America. We can outproduce, and we want to make sure our products are everywhere around it in a fair, good manner.
I totally agree with you. And Congressman, I understand the idea of making America so attractive that all companies are going to want to do business in America and not take too many jobs overseas. But look, you were a businessman before you entered Congress, and you know that businesses have business all over the world. So should he be threatening, you know, to the tune of a 35% tariff? Or is this just a tool that he's just throwing out there to scare companies to hope that they do more business in America?
I mean, I think he's sending a clear message that he wants to build the jobs here in America. Because right now, if you're a shareholder, you'd look at your corporations and you'd say, why are you staying in America? It's cheaper to be domiciled outside. You can't bring the money back without a high tax rate. So you've got to reform the entire tax code. And I think he's sending a message that he supports changing the tax code. That's what we've had many conversations about. And plus, so many times we talked with Donald Trump about changing the regulatory world of America. I mean, in the last administration, they have offered more than 500 major ruling of new regulation that, again, pushes companies out of America.
Right. I totally understand that. But this 35% tariff, have you spoken with Donald Trump about this?
Yeah, I talked to him lots of times. I haven't spoken to him since he put that tweet out. I'm sure I'll talk to him this week.
Because you say the government should not be picking winners and losers, right?
I don't think government should be picking winners and losers. I believe in the market. Look, when I started my first business when I was 19, there's 3 lessons I learned. You were the first to work, you're last to leave, and you're last to be paid. And from my perspective, I wanted to have a competitive market, but I wanted to be able to play into it.
Those are good rules. Let's talk about the first 100 days and what you expect to be realistic in terms of getting through. We've talked about tax reform. We've talked about repealing Obamacare. There's the border security and that wall. What do you think is really doable in terms of legislation?
I think you'll see action at the very beginning about border security. You'll see action at the very beginning doing a 2017 budget so we have reconciliation, so we can deal with repealing Obamacare. You'll see us working at the very beginning of replacing Obamacare as well. I just sent a letter out to all the governors and all the insurance commissioners to give us, Congress, their ideas as well, what a new health care system should look like. You'll see us start on tax reform as well. But also, Article 1, that regulatory world that became so burdensome where the executive branch has overreached, wheeling that back in, unshackling what really government has done to small businesses across the country, that they can invest again inside America.
Is it possible to repeal and replace Obamacare and that reconciliation bill in a timely manner, whereas no one gets any interruption in terms of their health care?
We can do it. It's not perfect how you go about doing it, but it has to be done. Look at Obamacare. Skyrocketed premiums. You had 23 co-ops that were given more than $2 billion. 16 of them already failed. Insurance is leaving the market, so you don't have choice. This is failing on its own, so you have to pull it out to be able to go through and replace it. We'll have a transition to make that happen, but I think what you want to have happen here is to get it right. Not just that it has to be within 100 days, but you get the system right.
And you've discussed the budget document that will pave the way for the repeal. That's expected in the Senate first week of 17?
Yeah, look for the Senate to start at the very beginning on budget for 2017, moving quickly to the House and then passing, which gives us the capability of repealing Obamacare on not a 60 vote, but a 51 vote inside the Senate.
Last week we had Stephen Mnuchin here in the studio talking about his plans for tax reform. Tell us your thoughts on that in terms of passage. Do you think we will, in fact, see tax reform in 17?
Yes. And why I say that, remember, Article 1, Section 7 of the Constitution says all tax reform starts in the House. We did not wait in this House for tax reform for the new election. We already put a plan out in a better way that is close to what President-elect Donald Trump's plan is about. We're already having those discussions now. You will find during Christmas break when people leave Washington, Ways and Means will stay here. Work on that plan now so we can hit the ground running. We want to make sure we get it right, that it's fair, that there's only 3 rates, that you actually let people keep more of what they earn. You let America's businesses to be competitive. And when they're competitive around the world, you let them bring the money back home so they invest back in their businesses with repatriation. So there's a lot of things we can do to make America better.
Yeah, I mean, tax reform is an important one. And do you think that that will move the needle on economic growth? I mean, connect the dots for us, because, you know, Mnuchin came here last week and talked about 3.5% to 4% economic growth. Is that doable very soon into the new administration?
That is doable, but you've got to set the foundation to make it happen. Look, we have big problems in America, and we can't get out of them if we don't grow this economy. That's the number one. We've got to have job growth, economic growth. And the factor to make that happen is tax reform. That is one of the core central points. That's why you see us working so hard on it. It is going to be accomplished in 2017, and you're going to see the fruits of this for generations to come.
But of course, the skeptics keep bringing up the cost of it. So I understand if you get economic growth, that pays for some of it. But how do you pay for such a huge tax cut for business and individuals?
Well, you know what? I've always believed individuals are better with their money than government. And it's proven time and time again. Look, the middle class is worth less today than they were 8 years ago. The best thing we can do is grow this economy. The only way we'll get out of our debt is to control our spending but grow the economy. We cannot afford not to do it. Economic growth, we've got to be back at 3% and 4%. To make sure that this is the place to be for the next century.
So should we not be worried about the impact on the deficit over the near term then, Congressman?
The only way we're going to get out of this deficit is if we have economic growth more than 4%. Look, you've got a new sheriff in town with Donald Trump. He's going to be able to keep eyes on spending. You've got a House that's able to control from what one part of the spending level. We got to deal with the mandatory side as well. But if we don't grow the economy, we'll never get out of this problem.
What are your expectations in terms of military spending? You know, Donald Trump has talked a lot about expanding the military, a focus on veterans and a focus on our men and women on the ground overseas. Give us your sense of what we should expect in terms of change.
Well, first thing you're going to see a change is there's 2 places to look. One, those veterans that have already served. The VA is broken. And we have it doubled the size of the spending when it comes to the VA. I just don't think it's efficient in what we're doing in that manner. We have to restructure that where it looks after the veteran itself. And I'll guarantee you that that's going to happen. Secondly, you got to make sure you have the military, the investment now, so when they have to go to battle, or if they ever have to go, that it's decisive and over very quickly. That means the R&D investment. And we're living off the investments that were made decades ago. We have not had that in quite some time. So we're going to look at that, restructure it, and that means actually reforms when it comes to the Pentagon as well, making your dollar go further. But technology has always kept America ahead of every other nation. And we'll take whatever it needs to make sure America is safe and we keep the world in a stabilization that we need.
So we're spending there, and we're spending obviously on the tax cuts, and then there's the infrastructure plan, Congressman. Do you expect that we are going to spend $1 trillion on infrastructure?
Look, I know people throw a lot of numbers out. The one thing I always look at infrastructure, it is important, but most important is that you pay for it. And we have an old infrastructure, so there's good investments, but I think you don't have to look at it the way we've looked at the past, right? What about public-private partnerships? What about enhancing the ability for the private sector to invest? But also, more importantly, we pass roads, but they don't get built for a decade because of the environmental studies that you have to do compounded upon it. Can't we streamline it so you get the benefit of the investment early, you get a public-private partnership so it's paid for, and you don't have the burdensome on government, but you have the benefit and the synergy of everybody involved?
Does it feel different to you, the way it looks, Congressman? I mean, you've got all houses, you've got both chambers, you've got the presidency. Characterize what you're seeing there in Washington for this new government.
you know what? It seems like a new day. And you see it on your show every day. Look at where the market's at. Look at the attitude of America. They know there is a window, there's an opportunity to make America great again, but we also know what's on our shoulders. We cannot miss this window of opportunity for this generation and the next. We have to set the framework so the next century is the American century. And I believe we can do it. I think it's tax reform, regulatory reform, healthcare reform, and looking at our military and the VA.
Sounds like you're about to get a lot of things done, Congressman. We'll be watching. We so appreciate your time this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Congressman Kevin McCarthy joining us this morning.